"We have arrived," said Werner gaily when the carriage stopped, and he jumped out easily. But with Jansen it was a rather slow affair. Silent and very drowsily he resisted, and would not come out. He seized the knob. The gendarme opened the weak fingers and pulled his hand away. Then Jansen seized the corner of the carriage, the door, the high wheel, but immediately let it go upon the slightest effort upon the part of the gendarme. He did not exactly seize things. He rather cleaved to each object sleepily and silently, and was torn away easily without any effort. Finally he got up. There were no flags. The railroad station was dark, deserted, and lifeless. The passenger trains were not running any longer, and the train which was silently waiting for these passengers on their way need no bright lights, no commotion. Suddenly Werner began to feel weary. It was not fear nor anguish, but a feeling of enormous, painful, tormenting weariness, which makes one feel like going off somewhere, lying down, and closing one's eyes very tightly. Werner stretched himself and yawned slowly. Jansen also stretched himself and quickly yawned several times. "I wish they'd be quicker about it," said Werner wearily. Jansen was silent, shrinking together. When the condemned moved along the deserted platform, which was surrounded by soldiers, to the dimly lighted cars, Werner found himself near Sergei Golovin. Sergei, pointing with his hand somewhere aside, began to say something, but only the word lantern was heard distinctly, and the rest was drowned in slow and weary yawning. "What did you say?" asked Werner, also yawning. "The lantern! The lamp in the lantern is smoking," said Sergei. Werner looked around. Indeed, the lamp in the lantern was smoking very much, and the glass had already turned black on top. "Yes, it is smoking." Suddenly he thought, what have I to do with the smoking of the lamp, since... Sergei apparently thought the same, as he glanced quickly at Werner and turned away. Both stopped yawning. They all went to the cars themselves. Only Jansen had to be led by the arms. At first he stamped his feet, and his boots seemed to stick to the boards of the platform. Then he bent his knees and fell into the arms of the gendarmes, his feet dangling like those of a very intoxicated man, and the tips of the boots scraped against the wood. It took a long time until he was silently pushed through the door. Vasily Kashirin also moved himself, unconsciously imitating the movements of his comrades. He did everything as they did. But on boarding the platform of the car, he stumbled, and a gendarme took him by the elbow to support him. Vasily shuddered and screamed shrilly, drawing back his arm. "Aye!" "What is it, Vasya?" Werner rushed over to him. Vasily was silent, trembling in every limb. The confused and even offended gendarme explained, "I wanted to keep him from falling, and he..." "Come, Vasya, let me hold you," said Werner, about to take him by the arm. But Vasily drew back his arm again and cried more loudly than before. "Ah!" "Vasily, it is I, Werner." "I know, don't touch me. I'll go myself." And continuing to tremble, he entered the car by himself and seated himself in a corner. Bending over to Musia, Werner asked her softly, pointing with his eyes at Vasily, "How about him?" "Bad," answered Musia, also in a soft voice. "He is dead already. Werner, tell me, is there such a thing as death?" "I don't know, Musia, but I think that there is no such thing," replied Werner seriously and thoughtfully. "That's what I have thought. But I was tortured with him in the carriage. It was like riding with a corpse." "I don't know, Musia. Perhaps there is such a thing as death for some people. Meanwhile, perhaps, but later, there will be no death. For me, death has also existed before, but it now exists no longer." Musia's somewhat pale cheeks flushed as she asked, "It did exist, Werner? It did?" "It did, but not now any longer, just the same as with you." A noise was heard in the doorway of the car. Mishka Tzaknok entered, stamping noisily with his heels, breathing loudly and spitting. He cast a swift glance and stopped obdurately. "No room here, gendarme!" he shouted to the tired gendarme, who looked at him angrily. "You make it so that I am comfortable here, otherwise I won't go. Hang me here on the lamp-post. What a carriage they gave me! Dogs! Is that a carriage? It's a devil's belly, not a carriage!" But suddenly he bent down his head, stretched out his neck, and thus went forward to the others. Out of the disheveled frame of hair and beard, his black eyes looked wildly and sharply, with an almost insane expression. "Ah, gentlemen," he drawled out. "So that's what it is. Hello, master." He thrust his hand to Werner and sat down opposite him, and, bending closely over to him, he winked one eye and quickly passed his hand over his throat. "You too? What?" "Yes," smiled Werner. "Are all of us to be hanged?" "All." "Oh-ho!" Tisagnoc grinned, showing his teeth, and quickly felt everybody with his eyes, stopping for an instant longer on Musya and Jansen. Then he winked again to Werner. "The minister?" "Yes, the minister. And you?" "I'm here for something else, master. People like me don't deal with ministers. I'm a murderer, master. That's what I am. An ordinary murderer. Never mind, master. Move away a little. I haven't come into your company of my own will. There will be room enough for all of us in the other world." He surveyed them all with one swift, suspicious, wild glance from under his disheveled hair. But all looked at him silently and seriously, even with apparent interest. He grinned, showing his teeth, and quickly clapped Werner on the knee several times. "That's the way, master. How does the song run? Don't rustle, O green little mother forest." "Why do you call me master, since we are all going—" "Correct," Sagnoc agreed with satisfaction. "What kind of master are you, if you are going to hang right beside me? There's a master for you." He pointed with his finger at the silent gendarme. That fellow there is not worse than our kind." He pointed with his eye at Vasily. "Master, there, master. You're afraid, aren't you?" "No," answered the heavy tongue. "Never mind that, no. Don't be ashamed. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Only a dog wags his tail and snarls when he is taken to be hanged. But you are a man. Who is that dope? He isn't one of you, is he?" He darted his glance rapidly about, and hissing, kept spitting continuously. Jansen curled up into a motionless bundle, pressed closely into the corner. The flaps of his outworn fur cap stirred, but he maintained silence. Werner answered for him. "He killed his employer." "Oh, Lord!" wondered Sagnoc. "Why are such people allowed to kill?" For some time Sagnoc had been looking sideways at Musya. Now turning quickly, he stared at her sharply, straight into her face. Young lady, what about you?" "Her cheeks are rosy and she is laughing. Look, she is really laughing," he said, clasping Werner's knee with his clutching, iron-like fingers. "Look, look!" Reddening, smiling confusedly, Musya also gazed straight into his sharp and wildly searching eyes. The wheels rattled fast and noisily. The small car kept hopping along the narrow rail. Now at a curve or at a crossing, the small engine whistled shrilly and carefully. The engineer was afraid lest he might run over somebody. It was strange to think that so much humane, painstaking care and exertion was being introduced into the business of hanging people, that the most insane deed on earth was being committed with such an air of simplicity and reasonableness. The cars were running, and human beings sat in them as people always do, and they rode as people usually ride, and then there would be a halt, as usual. The train will stop for 5 minutes, and there death would be waiting. Eternity, the great mystery. End of chapter 11.